Let's talk further about the now concluded GNU retreat. Bring in one of the members, DA leader John Steenhuisen. John, a very good evening to you. Welcome back to SABC News. Let's start with what was your contribution to the discussions and ultimately the outcomes. As we saw, I think it was about 8 areas of focus that have now been put up as the priorities going forward.
Well, obviously the key priorities is how we get the economy moving and how we get South Africans into work, with a particular focus on upskilling young South Africans with the skills that they need to be able to enter the workplace, dealing with crime and criminality, the problems at our borders, hunger, as well as ensuring that the apparatus of state is fit for purpose in its design to rapidly focus on execution of the priorities identified by government. I think it was a constructive event, and I think that it gave the leaders the opportunity to speak frankly about some of the issues that we believe are important. But of course, it all comes down to the economy. We have to get South Africa's economy growing much quicker and in a much more inclusive way.
What was the toughest part of the discussions? Which issues were most contentious?
Well, I think there was some reflection on where we'd gone wrong with budget 2025 and budget 1, 2 and 3. And I think there was a understanding about the lessons that were learned there, about how we need to work far more constructively and closer together in those. And I think there's already been a sea change in that as we go into the medium-term budget policy statement. And of course, the recently agreed upon GAIN economic turbocharge plan to turbocharge the economy. And I think that these are fundamentally important issues.
So united and strong was the phrasing that was used by President Cyril Ramaphosa. I wonder to what extent you would agree with that and what that then means. For instance, what does the legal challenge, the litigation the DA has taken on issues like expropriation as well as employment equity, which are still pending, mean for that unity?
Well, I think that there are a number of issues that predated the GNU. The Expropriation Act was one of them. It was adopted by the 6th Parliament. And I think that there's very important constitutional provisions there that we think are important. And certainly from recent submissions made from even some of the ANC quarters, admissions that perhaps not everything with the bill is going to give us something that's fit for purpose. And so I think that that's important that those challenges continue. They're where they belong, which is in the court of law. In the statement of intent, all parties committed to respecting the rule of law. But certainly as we go forward, there are now going to be a number of issues that we need to find each other as leaders and look for the compromise. And I think that the GNU leaders meeting, adopting the clearinghouse terms of reference was a good step towards starting to build the infrastructure to deal with differences of opinion, differences of policy in a constructive way. We've also achieved a great deal as a government of national unity. Getting off the grey list was a massive achievement. I don't think it's been given nearly the attention it deserves. Being able to stabilize our currency, being able to prevent the country sliding into recessions. These are all positive aspects, but there's an acceptance from all of us that we need to move faster, more efficiently and more effectively to deal with those issues that are facing South Africans, such as unemployment, immigration, crime, water, and various other issues that are holding our people back from achieving their full potential.
So in your case, then, compromise through the courts can't be great for trust within the GNU and harmony. Are there not other methods then, other mechanisms post this retreat that you could turn to within the GNU that could help find some sort of common ground on the issues I laid out earlier where the DA has ultimately gone to court?
Well, of course, we've got the clearinghouse mechanism now. Up to date, the clearinghouse mechanism had no terms of reference and has been a sort of amorphous body. Now that we've adopted terms of reference, which clearly set out the parameters in which issues can be resolved, obviously the clearinghouse is not a decision-making body, but it can elevate issues to the leaders' meeting, which is a decision-making body in which where sufficient consensus clause will apply. And so, yes, we're building this infrastructure around ensuring that the coalitions are better managed and that where we have differences, these are managed in a far more constructive way than perhaps in the past. And I think it's a natural settling period. I think the coalition is entering a more mature phase now where we've accepted we all need each other. And frankly, the country needs us to stand together and do what's right by the country.
But as things stand then, John, the DA is taking its own government, or a government that it's part of, to court on two issues. So that dents, the point I'm making is, it dents the public reading of this message of strength and unity and focus among all 10 of you at least.
Yeah, well, there's a variety of issues that predate the GNU, and this is one of them. And remember, it's not the government we're taking to court, it's Parliament. We're adopting an approach, an attack on the bill, that it did not follow the correct parliamentary procedure to be adopted. And so it is Parliament that has got a case to answer in terms of the Expropriation Act. And there are a number of issues that predated the GNU, things like Bella and others. And, we found ways around those. But on an issue as fundamental as property rights in South Africa, I think it is right that the courts provide the clarity that's needed on the interpretation of Section 25 and what it means. And I actually think the government will be stronger for having a definitive judgment that sets very clearly the foundation for where property rights begin and end.
And if compromise is going to be part of the formula to make a success of this government of national unity, on what issues is the DA willing to bend to help that effort?
Well, I think we've bent on a number of issues, not issues of massive principle, but certainly on some issues where we've needed to make some compromises, things like the minimum wage and the like, where we've had to make compromises to get things through. And this is really the thing about coalitions, is that no one party gets to have everything at once. You have to make compromises within the coalition. It doesn't matter whether it's in South Africa, whether it's the Netherlands, whether it's any other country in the world where coalitions exist. Not every party is going to get everything at once all of the time, but you should be able to get some of what you want, some of the time. And I think that's the realization that is starting to dawn on the leaders of the parties.
And is the GNU still going to expand then to include more parties? Because the ANC had said that's part of what they see as the future of its realignment.
Well, that certainly wasn't discussed over the course of the last 2 days. And I also think that bringing new parties in is going to complicate an already complicated situation. I think a 10-party coalition is already on the large side, certainly one of the largest in the world. And I think, the more parties you bring in, the more opportunities there are for differences of opinion. I think we have to make the current configuration work. And I think it has started to work. I think that the last 3 months have been a period of great stability and knuckling down and getting the work done, adopting GAIN as our economic plan to turbocharge the economy, and getting on to the brass tacks of getting these things delivered. Now we need to focus on how we accelerate those interventions so that they start to bear fruit, and that our people start to feel it in the employment figures. They start to feel it in the fact that they have more money in their pockets, and they start to feel it in the fact that the state is keeping them safe, educating their children, providing platforms and opportunities for them to succeed.
John Steenhuisen, leader of the Democratic Alliance, among the 10 leaders who were present at the GNU retreat. Thank you for your time on the SABC this evening.